Hi everyone, it's Ashley from the Life Rewired Brain Injury Podcast. I just wanted to do this short to clarify on another short that was released that got feedback about it not being clear what the topic was. My fellow co-host Rob and a guest were talking about the shame and guilt you feel after sustaining a brain injury. Part of the problem is when you get a brain injury, specifically in my case with the concussion, they tell you you're supposed to feel better and be back to your normal self within 9 months. Well, I'm part of 1% of the population that ended up developing post-concussion syndrome, so I'm not better in 9 months. I'm actually almost 11 years out from my injury. So society and medical standards have timelines of when you should feel better after sustaining an acquired brain injury, and this could be dependent on if it was more mild like my case or more severe in terms of people that unfortunately are not able to work or drive anymore. They may be totally dependent on a caregiver to help them with their everyday tasks. So that's part of the component. The other part of the component is really the guilt and the shame. You feel guilty that you're dependent on others to take care of you. You feel guilty because you can't do what you used to be able to do. I loved to participate in things such as community theater or go to music concerts of my preferred artists. And because of my sensitivity to lights and sounds after my brain injury, I'm no longer able to do that. This also ties in with the shame you feel with having a brain injury because you're supposed to be recovered and you're supposed to be able to do these things, but you don't. It impacts your daily life and it impacts people daily in different ways. It could be cognitive changes in terms of memory or not being able to say things correctly. You might not have any filter, so things just come out of your mouth. That's kind of like word vomit, fatigue, headaches. You might not be able to walk if you have a more severe brain injury, so you might be in a wheelchair or use a walker. People still experience nausea. Like I mentioned earlier, some people can't work or drive. So it really does impact you in a bunch of ways. And something stood out to me to what the woman guest said about people telling her that they're so depressed that they just want to be in a dark room in a fetal position. Well, before the brain injury research came out that showed that it's important to be active in little bit increments after you're first injured, not like go back into things full throttle. The approach was really you need to stay home and rest. So for me, it was being in a dark room because I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't go on my phone. I couldn't read a book. Any type of stimuli was triggering to me. And also I had my days and nights confused. I still have bouts of insomnia. Granted, some of my symptoms I had prior to my injury, and my injury just exacerbated it. So what I really think, the topic of Rob and his guest posting that short is the guilt and shame we feel within ourselves still not being recovered, but also the societal expectation that there's a certain timeline that you should be better by. And if you're not better by that, then why aren't you better by that? I know for me, I had to go under neurological testing. They couldn't find anything neurological with me. Maybe it was psychological then. So I had to go through a whole day of psychological testing to see if this was all in my head. And that came back where they discovered that it wasn't a psychological. I actually have short-term memory issues, visual acuity issues, and sound sensitivity, and light sensitivity. So, it is very all encompassing. It does not look the same for everyone. And I think the point is we need to get rid of the stigma of, well, you were supposed to have been better by now. But also, we as the brain injury survivors need to work on not feeling guilt and shame for the new life that we are now living. And I know that's easier said than done, because I definitely still have my days where I feel, guilt and shame, especially because for me, I get very emotional when I'm stressed out. So I might verbally lash out at someone and then I feel horrible after the fact. But it was like this impulse I had. So we definitely, as a society and as brain injury survivors, need to work on, breaking down those myths that the doctors tell you, because it's not the same for everybody in terms of recovery, as well as ways for us to overcome the guilt and shame we might feel about our new lives. Hope that helps, and thank you all, and feel free to donate to the Brain Injury Association of America. If me and Rob hit $10,000 by June 30th, we've both agreed to shave our heads. There's a special link, so go to liferewired.com for that special link, because that's the only way we get credit for the donation. Have a good day, everybody.